Wicked Webs We Weave podcast. I am your host, Ryan Mckern. Sit back and dwell in the darkness, mon ami. And thank you for joining me in the Wicked Webs We Weave. Locust Grove Cemeteries, number 1 and 2, in the Thami-Lafon School. Article by Macy Mikalik, NewOrleansHistorical.org. Today the blocks bound by Magnolia 7th, Ferret, and 6th Streets appear to be a vacant green space. However, for nearly a century, these two blocks housed the Thami-Lafon School complex, originally built in 1906. The property operated as a school throughout the 20th century until 2005, when it was damaged by Hurricane Katrina. The main school building was demolished in August of 2011. Archaeologists monitored this process and discovered that the two blocks once occupied by the school had an even longer history as a site of two 19th century cemeteries called Locust Grove Cemeteries number 1 and 2. The Locust Grove Cemeteries number 1 and number 2 were established between 1805 and 1879 for the city's indigent residents. By this period, there were several cemeteries in the vicinity, including Lafayette Cemeteries number 1 and 2, and St. Joseph Cemeteries number 1 and 2. The Lafayette Cemeteries were municipal, ostensibly reserved for residents what in the cities of 4th District, while the St. Joseph Cemeteries only interred bodies for a fee. Lafayette Cemetery number 2 had recently been overwhelmed with burials from the devastating yellow fever outbreak in 1853. For more information on the New Orleans yellow fever outbreak, please see my previous episodes. It was ordered to be closed for the burials outside of the 4th District. Typically and possibly of Reconstruction-era policies, a plot of land was reserved in Lafayette Cemetery number 2, in which to bury black residents from the 4th District who could pay the residents whose families could not pay, and to be buried in a new cemetery called Locust Grove. The first Locust Grove Cemetery was opened in 1865. In March 1877, the city opened Locust Cemetery number 2, and in 1878, yet another yellow fever epidemic overwhelmed the city. The conditions of the cemeteries began deteriorating, and the clients and officials of New Orleans began to take notice. Many individuals reported grim encounters and grave details of piled-up bodies, exposed corpses, and multiple bodies shoved into one grave. In January 1850 and 1880, only 27 years after the first and 3 years after the second, the Daily Picayune reported that the Locust Grove cemeteries were closed, covered with soil, and sown with grass seed. In the years after, in closing, the land was used in a dumping ground. Within only a couple of decades, a school for black students was constructed near the former Locust Cemetery. This school was named in remembrance of the late Thami-Lafon, a black philanthropist in New Orleans. The first building accommodated 500 students. Soon after, the school was burned down in conjunction with the race riot of 1900, sparked by the murder case of Robert Charles. The African American residents of New Orleans began petitioning for the school to be rebuilt. Plans were underway by March 1905, and the second Tommy LaFond School was ready by the 1906-1907 school year. This time, the City Council selected the site of former Locust Grove Cemeteries to build the second school. A playground was built in the summer of 1915, and it became the first playground in the U.S. established for African Americans children. In 1922, Tommy LaFond School had 30 classrooms and 2,515 students, making it the largest African American elementary school in the United States. This layered site contains some of the best and worst aspects of New Orleans history when looking at New Orleans' rich history of cemetery use and funerary activities. There are some unique themes that can be uncovered, setting certain spaces aside for the dead, classifying people after death based on wealth on race, and deciding who should be burned. Where all cultures or patterns to be buried were reflected upon and can be often protected and predicted by the one's status within while alive. As we see in Locust Cemeteries, the way someone's body was handled after death was contingent on emerging politics, like those shifting across New Orleans' Reconstruction-era landscape. The mistreatment and mishandling of human remains of the New Orleans poor and black reports and residences, unfortunately, seen repeatedly in archaeological sites, the Locust Cemetery Grove's history. When analyzing the space through the contents of the Tommy LaFond School, similar themes echo. Large part of Louisiana past consists of inequality and prejudice towards African American residents, from slavery to segregation. The transfer of a polluted, indigent burial ground into a school for black children reflects broader patterns of systematic racism. Even so, Tommy LaFond School, established as a successful black school during the era of separate but equal, represented the city's black excellent and existence and resistance to racism. The school's perseverance and success over the years highlight the theme of progress and advancement for the African American community in New Orleans throughout the 20th century. And now a bit of lagniappe to the story. I'll bring you another article entitled The City Beneath the City, Archaeology of New Orleans, curated by the University of New Orleans Department of Anthropology and Sociology. This tour includes information about archaeological sites already investigated in New Orleans Parish. Some of these sites are now destroyed, others are no longer accessible, or have considerable untapped research potential. Most are on private property and not ready accessible to the public, as there are few protections for archaeological resource in the city. The locations of some of these projects are only proximate. We ask that you do in part help them preserve and protect the cultural heritage of the city. Please contact us or the Louisiana Division of Archaeology if you are aware of archaeological resources that are being destroyed. This tour was created with the participation studies Dr. Ryan Gray's Archaeology of New Orleans course at UNO, and with support from students in the MUS and Urban Studies PhD programs at UNO, who are continuously updating and adding more sites and sub-tours exhibits. You can also check out the lab's catalog page at catalog.g619. Locations of the tour include the Rising Sun Hotel, St. Louis Cathedral, St. Anthony's Garden, 810 Royal Street, Madame John's Legacy, St. Peter Street Cemetery, Congo Square Armstrong Park, the Cabildo, the Herman Grima House, 626 Bourbon Street, Crucibles, and the Antebellum Imagination. 936 St. Peter Street, a cottage industry in the quarter. St. Augustine Treme plantation site. The Yates Poterie site. The Lafitte Housing Project. Greater New Orleans Bridge No. 2. Castilla Homes excavating Central City neighborhood. Locust Grove Cemeteries No. 1 and 2. Dome La Femme School. Charity Hospital Cemetery No. 1 and Hurricane Katrina Memorial. Charity Hospital Cemetery No. 2 at Introduction. Charity Hospital Cemetery No. 2, excavations from the 1980s. Temple of the Innocent Blood, the Lower Ninth Ward Community and Peacemaking. Big Oak and Little Oak Islands. All of these information you can find at neworleanshistorical.org and nova.com. We would like to thank and researcher making the episode tonight. Once again, thank you for joining me in the darkness, mon ami. I am Ryan Mckern, and until we see you again, au revoir.